Hello. Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm going to give a quick overview of the night. My name is Jeff Bagg. I'm with the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. We can't say enough collectively that we're really, really happy that you're all here. This project is for you all in the town of West Brookfield, so we're very happy. We have a full night, so we'll get started. We'll try to stick to this sort of schedule as much as we can. The idea for tonight is that this is the beginning of a project, and so it's so important and great that you guys are here. And as we go through the session, you will hopefully learn, what is a master plan, what is the process going to look like, and obviously how can you guys be involved and participate. So that's definitely the overarching goal. What we're going to start with is an introduction of the Master Plan Committee. So it's a committee that exists in town that's jump-started this process. They're going to introduce themselves. The executive director of CMRPC, Janet Pierce, is going to say hello. And then we're going to go into two portions about what is a master plan and where are we today with the process. So that'll be Chris Ryan and myself from CMRPC. And then we're going to get into the focus group activities. And so the idea generally, and I'll recap this again before we start, while we're talking, we're going to have some stations set up around the room. And the way the master plan works is it's based on 7 general subjects. And so we're going to set up 7 stations around the room. And each person's going to be going to a station and talking about strengths and challenges for about 20 minutes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have someone report out to the group some of the main or themes that are coming out. And the important thing is, on your name tag there was a number, and that's going to help get you to a certain focus area. And then after everyone reports out, or after each section is reported out, people around the room, I'm going to facilitate anyone who wants to add something to the list. We'll have an opportunity to add to the list. And then finally, we're going to go through, and the fun part is we're going to give everyone 12 dots as a way to prioritize the things that they see on the list. So I'll go over that again before we go into the focus group session. But for the time being, what I'm going to do is hand it over to a couple members or all the members of the Master Plan Committee to just introduce yourselves. And we can do 2 things. We can do this. You're on the leash here.
Thank you for coming this evening. My name is Keith Arsenal. Quick story, I didn't make it to the first Master Plan Committee, so they made me the chairman. I'm going to introduce MJ H. She likes to talk more than I do.
Good evening, everybody. We're glad to see you here. Really thrilled with the turnout. I just want to spend a couple of minutes introducing the master plan and your role here tonight. One of the things that you want to think about the master plan is that it's sort of a roadmap for the future. It's a tool that hopefully will be used at Town Hall and by hopefully some grant writers and some people who are going to be out there looking for funding for projects and things that are going to happen in the town in the future. The reason you're here tonight and the reason we're happy to have you participating is that we probably could have put these folks from Central Mass Regional Planning Commission and ourselves in a room behind a closed door, logged a certain amount of man hours, and walked out the door with a plan. But if we had done that, there would be no consensus. There would be no transparency, okay? When you picked up a copy of that master plan and you said, look at that, wow, I really thought something different should happen. This is your opportunity, and the survey, that's going to be out both in paper form and on the website is your opportunity to dig down a little deeper. So if there is something that you personally feel strongly about, look at those 6 or 7 boards up there, put yourself at that table, get your information into the mix. Get on the survey. The survey will let you peel off at a high level or go down deeper. So really, we're here tonight to get information from you so that we can have consensus. When a grant writer goes to put together an application to get funding, whether it's matching funding or just one piece of money to support an effort in town, The master plan is not a requirement, but it is something that all these people who evaluate these grants are looking for. They're looking to find out, is there consensus? Is there something, energy in a town behind something? So this is your opportunity to, get your word out there. And like I said, figure out where you feel strongly and put yourself with that group and, talk to your friends and get them filling out the survey and, let's move forward.
I'm Tim Morrell from the Planning Board. I've been chairman for the last, I don't know how many years, 10, 15, somewhere like. And I've been pushing to bring up this master plan at least the last 10 years. We did the community development plan and finished it in '04, and that now is outdated, so it must be done again. And this is a great opportunity for everyone in the town to have input on the way the town goes forward. And with that is all the commitments we have towards going into grant programs and trying to get funding. And this is the number one question that comes on the survey or the master plan being part of what they're looking for in grant writing. So if we have this completed, they'll look at this and say, hey, you guys are on the ball. We will be looking at you with grants. Other towns that have done well with grants, Warren, they have a whole new police safety station down there, and Ware has done the same thing. It's time for us to do that, and there's a great opportunity to be part of it. So I'm glad you all came. We had a great turnout, and we have more people talking.
Good evening. My name is Craig Carter. I'm on the Master Plan Committee as well. I was probably one of the earlier members that joined the committee, and the reason I say that is because, in working with the team here, as a whole, we spent a lot of time doing months of research before we even put together an RFP, request for proposal, to submit out there for people to respond to based on the type of master plan we wanted to put together, or at least identify an outline or a guideline for us to work from as a town. So in doing so, one of the things we wanted to make sure that was in place as part of this master plan is to show that it was an actionable plan. Tim referenced a plan that was done back in 2004. Some of that plan was perhaps enacted upon. Some of the plan was maybe just put aside, and used it as a reference guideline. What we wanted to do as part of this plan is to make it an actionable plan that we can not only hold ourselves accountable for as a town and a community, but hold our town officials accountable for too. To see, and understand what's the most important things we need to focus on in the next 120 to 180 days. What do we as a town need to focus on in the next year to 2 years, maybe 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years? So this way we can start chunking out projects that are important, and we can bring them up to the town and make them visible to the town so they can be more aware of how they spend money, how we might grow as a community, how we might want to participate in more grant programs and grant writing efforts in order to get more funds for the town that might be not tied to any of the current resources that we're pulling from today. As we stated, there are many parts to this plan. There's 7 here tonight that we're going to go through. All the way from land use to economic development to population and housing. There's a lot of unique points in each one of these sections that we're happy to talk to you about. Our committee is open at any point in time to talk to anyone during our committee time in meetings or in off hours. It's through email or phone call. We're glad to help because we're new to this as well, and we want to just make sure that we're providing all the information we can to everyone in the town as part of this process, and make this a living, breathing document that we can use as a guideline, not a lifeline. With that said, thank you, and I'll turn it over to Wes for his comments.
My name is Wesley Slobody. I'm a planning board member for the last 3 years. I guess the more I thought about how important a master plan is, I started to realize how we all follow a master plan in our daily lives. You know, what can we afford this? Can we afford that? You know, what kind of car can we drive? How much food can we buy? In the same sense, the town should follow one too, because we have a limited budget each year, and they're getting more and more strained each year. So we can follow a plan that will allow the decision makers to best use our resources. I think it will only benefit the town to achieving the West Brookfield we want to see in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and so we're going to turn it over to Janet Pierce, who's the Executive Director of the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, and we will definitely have time for questions. So I realize that this whole process will generate questions. I failed to mention that at the beginning, but we will, by the middle of the night, you guys will have a handle on what we're doing, and I apologize for starting with the introductions first.
And hopefully we won't be here in the middle of the night. Although I have a very short commute, so I don't mind. I'm looking forward to working on this project. I'm a neighbor. I don't live in West Brookfield, but I'm here quite frequently. Do my banking, my doctor, my dentist is here, buy gas, and all sorts of fun things. And if you people drive me crazy, I'm going to have to call Norman Tonelli and set up an appointment with him as well. But I'm Janet Pierce. I'm the Executive Director for Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, also known as CMRPC. You've heard our name passed around, so many of you town officials, you'll know who we are, but many of you have no idea. So we were formed back in 1963, an act of the legislature to work on planning programs on a regional basis. We're a standalone governmental agency. We're not associated with the state. We're not associated with the communities or the federal government, but we're standalone. We serve the town of West Brookfield and 39 surrounding communities, including the city of Worcester. West Brookfield is very important to us. If you look at the map, it's a little bit blurry over there, but West Brookfield serves as the gateway on Route 9 to all of our eastern communities. It's very important. You want to draw people in, looking for economic development, looking for housing, or people going through. You have so much to offer in this town. So we're very excited to be here. We went through the RFP process. We've been awarded the contract through the Board of Selectmen in the town of West Brookfield. Our timeline is to have this completed by about the end of October. We have been working with the Master Plan Committee. They've been great, working with them since January, maybe even December. I forgot when we first met with you, meeting with the different boards and whatnot. But I would like to thank all of you because you supported the funding for this program at your last annual town meeting. So thank you for being forward-thinking and recognizing the importance of the master plan as well. One other item that I'd really like to touch on is this is, as was stated earlier, but I can't stress this enough, this is your plan. We're the consultants hired to do this work and to take all of this information, make sense of it, get some consensus, bring all of you back, and hopefully you bring some friends with you to the next meeting, and then we have a third meeting, I believe. Correct, Jeff?
Yes. And
the final plan. So we need to hear from you. We need your ideas. We need to hear what you're passionate about. What is important to you? What do you feel the challenges are in West Brookfield? What do you think the opportunities are? How do you want to build off of your strengths? We don't know that. We don't live in this town. We may have an idea. I mean, we've been around for 54 years, and we've served as your planning commission for all those years, and we have a very good relationship with the town. We've done other plans as well. But deep down, with that survey, as MJ mentioned, right now it's a 10-page survey back and forth. It'll be available online as well. But the more participation we get across all sectors, the better idea that we'll have of what the folks in West Brookfield are looking for. And that's ultimately the goal. But again, your passion, if you find that open space and recreation, you're passionate about open space and recreation or the natural and cultural resources. As was mentioned earlier, we want this plan to be implementable and to move forward. We don't want it sitting on a shelf collecting dust, otherwise you've thrown your money away. So if you have that passion, maybe you can help the town move forward through the master plan, or if there are other committees that end up being formed to move that agenda forward, to work towards those short and long-term goals. but we really look forward to working with all of you. Very excited to be here. This is a great opportunity for everyone, for us as well. So I thank all of you. And before I turn it back over to Chris, I would like to ask all of you to take your phones out, if you have them. I know there's only probably 3 bars or so. The next slide. Thanks, Jeff. I wasn't sure if you did that or not. But we have a Facebook page that we created. We also have a website for the West Brookfield Master Plan. When I left my house, I believe we had 84 following it. I'm big into numbers. Let's see how many likes and followers we can get before the end of the night. So if you can, go on to the West Brookfield Master Plan. We believe in being impartial, open, communication, and transparent. And a lot of the information will be on this particular Facebook page and also on the website that's done. So thank you very much. Chris?
Yeah, one of the people that actually has given one of the likes to the Facebook page is my cousin Jennifer from San Francisco. So that shows you how widely this Facebook page has made it out there. Again, thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a master plan is. It's something that us as planners, we take for granted. We've worked on these all of our career. But when we come into a community that hasn't done one before, we just want to make sure that you're comfortable knowing what it is, what it can do, what it's supposed to do, and so that you have a pretty good idea of what kind of input we're looking for from you. So what is a master plan? It's a future vision and a policy guide for the town. So really what we want to begin with is that vision. What do you want the town to be in the future? Do you want it to be largely what it is today, with some minor things changed here and there? Or do you want some significant changes in one or more areas? So that vision is important. What do you anticipate your desire for West Brookfield looking like in 20 years? It's a plan for a community's physical evolution. So as you can see from the 7 areas up front, there's a lot of different physical attributes like land use, in terms of land use change, development, or protection of land, making sure that things that want to be the same are maintained the same. Those things that are opportunities for development, that we provide those in a way that is reasonable. Transportation network, the roadway system, certainly very important. Open space and recreation, those are the parks and the playgrounds and other opportunities for recreation in the community. Economic development, what kind of businesses do you want to support and maybe bring in if possible? Natural cultural resources, the water resources in town, the forest and things of that nature, and so on and so forth. So it's a physical evolution as well. So it's a comprehensive analysis of all aspects of community development. So again, that's another way of referring to a master plan, is a comprehensive plan, because it takes all these different subject areas and doesn't just look at things that can be done in that one area, because some of these subject areas connect, like land use and transportation. You cannot have one without the other. You can't develop land unless you have a way of getting there. So these things are intended to be stitched together to make sure that they're not contradictory and that they work well together. Its long range typically varies from 5 to 15 years. In this case, we're talking about 10 years. This is not a bylaw. This is not a regulation. This is just a policy document. This is you folks letting us know where the town should go, and hopefully what that will do is that will allow the decision makers in town, town meeting, board of selectmen, etc., to see where your preferences are and hopefully act in that direction. So a master plan helps a community to manage growth and change and provide for orderly and predictable development. You certainly don't want things to happen haphazardly. You want to make sure that things happen in a way that maintains the character of the community and doesn't move out in another direction and change the very reason why you came here. It protects environmental resources and strengthens the local identity. It sets priorities for developing and maintaining infrastructure and public facilities. It creates a framework for future policy decisions, increases eligibility for specific grant programs, and prioritizes others. It promotes open democratic planning and provides guidance again to landowners, developers, and town officials for where the townspeople want to go. There is a requirement of the state for communities to put a master plan together that meets specific criteria, and these are the elements that need to be in a master plan according to the state. Statement of goals and policies. So what we're going to do is after we develop that vision, we're going to start drilling down and coming up with goals for these specific areas, and then we're going to come up with action items. What can we do to meet those goals? The various topical areas, as you can see, the boards that we have: land use, housing, economic development, natural cultural resources, open space and recreation, public services and public facilities, transportation and circulation, and then most importantly, the implementation. I think we've had several people talk about making this an actionable plan, making it something that's reasonable, not pie in the sky, not something where we put goals together that can't be reached. We want to make sure that the goals not only are reasonable and they what you want, but they're goals that actually can be met. And what we do is we put an implementation plan together that identifies where the funding sources are likely to come from, who's going to be identified as the responsible party to make sure that that particular action item goes forward, so that you can see clearly each of the action items, how it's going to be done. In addition to those items that the state does require, there are some other areas that can be supplemented if the town feels that they're important. I'm sure that there's some other areas that could be thought of, but many communities look at special areas of concern and focus on things like village centers, neighborhoods or corridors. Some of them focus on energy, smart growth, sustainability and climate action, capital improvements plans, that's a big part of many master plans, education, governance, and then public health and social services. So what is in the master plan? Again, the vision, we collect data, a lot of data. We look at existing conditions. We want to make sure that how those existing conditions compare with the past to see what trends have taken place. And we come up with future projections for how things might go, given, number one, if we do nothing, or number two, if we take some direction to guide policy in a certain direction based on your preferences. And of course, there are maps and graphics and charts and everything else in a master plan. So some of the emerging trends and issues, what are the demographic changes in town? How's the population changed, not only in terms of sheer numbers, but based on gender and age distribution and race and things like that? What are some of the new markets and technologies that we need to deal with? Like social media. You know, certainly things like Facebook and Twitter are becoming more important. The sharing economy, Uber and Lyft and Airbnb are things that communities never expected to have to deal with in the past, but now they are. Aging or inadequate infrastructure, roads, bridges, things of that nature. Changing lifestyles, smaller family sizes in some cases, transit and transit-oriented development for some communities, concerns over environmental change, loss of farmland, antiquated zoning, shrinking tax base, increased calls for existing or new services, public health, energy, and then building codes and materials. How long does the process take? Well, in this particular case, we're going to be doing it in 8 months, and that's ambitious. But typically, the process takes between 9 months and 2 years. It also depends on what the local capacity is, who's leading and participating in the process. We have a great consulting team and a great master plan committee, and it looks like we're going to have great participation amongst the public as well, which is a great help to moving the process forward. The form of the public process, we're trying to be very creative with what we do. We're trying to get you engaged in interesting exercises and a lot of different ways for you to participate. Not only those social media, but the survey that was talked about before is extremely important. Community characteristics, size, makeup, complexity of land use pattern, age and relevance of existing master plan, which there is none in this case, degree of agreement or disagreement about major community issues. If there's a lot of conflict about some of the things that come up, sometimes that can draw the process out a little bit more, just to facilitate those differences. Planning and zoning track record, perceptions of local government, form of government, and of course the budget. How does the process work? We talk about where we want to go as a community. We do that visioning and goal setting. We do interviews with stakeholders and topic experts. We have public meetings just like this, focus groups to drill down on something very specific like economic development, bringing the key stakeholders in that sector to get their take on how things are going. We have surveys, which was talked about, will be available in paper form and electronically, and other internet tools as well. In terms of outcomes, an adopted comprehensive plan should have consistency among all the elements. I talked about how things, we don't want to make sure that there's any conflict between, say, for something in economic development and land use. It guides the implementation process, sponsors implementation activities, keeps the citizens actively engaged in planning and committed to master plan success. It's often designated to take the lead in evaluating the master plan in terms of a committee. And then progress reports are made sometimes at town meeting, and then sometimes also takes the lead in proposing amendments to the plan and other actions that take place. The adoption of a master plan. So in the state of Massachusetts, the master plan requires a majority vote of the planning board, but it does not require adoption by the local legislative body, town meeting, town council, city council, etc. So, but many communities still present their master plans to the local legislative body for approval or acceptance, because what that does is it provides additional consensus that shows that the master plan was something that the community really came together on and largely agreed on. So again, the plan is a blueprint for zoning, capital improvements, land acquisition, etc. Whatever you want to put in there in terms of guiding the future growth and direction of the community should be in the plan. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Jeff Bagg.
Thanks, Chris. I'm going to set a timer to keep me honest. So that was a lot of the background, and I have a lot to cover to kind of bring it all together as to where we are today. This is somewhat legible. So the Master Plan Committee had a lot of background work prior to January. The Board of Selectmen authorized the contract in January, and so essentially we've started in January on this project. And throughout the process, we've had several meetings with the Master Plan Committee, and the first item in January that's worth highlighting is that we sent a letter to existing board and committee members in the middle of January, letting them know that we're here and starting to engage with the board and committee members who see some of the daily work at the municipal level. What we then did in February was we came as our team. So we have an excellent team here. We have 9 people are probably working on this project in total. So we came to Town Hall and we set up a couple rooms, and we met with a couple of town officials and a couple of the board and committee members to really get a sense from that level of some of the things that they're encountering, or some of the overarching themes that we're seeing, they're seeing in West Brookfield. And so that was sort of like an immersion day. And again, it was at the board and committee level. And where we are now is in March, obviously, and we're at the first community event. So what we had to do as a group working with the town is get some of the very preliminary baseline information under our belts so that we could come and talk to you. And so this event is really important because it's the first opportunity that we have to introduce ourselves, give you a brief overview of what is a master plan, but then the next couple steps that we're really needing to do is try as hard as we can to engage with all of you as residents in town. So the survey's come up several times. The survey is something that we're still working on, and we expect to release it in the next week or two. And so what we want to do is try to get that survey into as many hands of residents as we possibly can. And so we're struggling with whether to mail it to each household or whether there's an alternative way to get this. So obviously we'll be able to create something online that's accessible if you have a computer. And our plan right now is to put copies of the survey available at certain key locations. So this still needs to be nailed down with the Master Plan Committee, but as of right now, we're thinking we'd have surveys available at the Senior Center. We'd have surveys available at Town Hall, obviously, the library. And then what we're trying to find is some key locations that all of you would go to where you might easily pick up the survey, fill it out, and drop it back off there. And so what we did is we started off with a town-wide mailing. So hopefully all of you got the postcard in the mail. That was the best way that we could directly connect to each person. And so that was one of our best opportunities for initial outreach, is to see how many people we could get here tonight. So the process, as Chris talked about, it's long, and we can't just come here and know everything. So your being here is so critical. We have the exercise later, which is a focus group to help us understand from your perspective what some of the strengths and what some of the challenges are. And so we can't do this without you guys involved. And so one of the messages that I'm hoping to give to each of you is, if everyone in the room can think of one or two people that they know who also lives in town, and start to tell them about the process, and tell them that there's going to be a survey coming up, and that this is an opportunity for everyone in town to take the survey and provide us with the feedback that we need. So sort of, we'll get to homework, but that's really the homework, is trying to help us spread the word. The word of mouth is going to be what we think is the best way to get to people and to hear what people are thinking. I'll quickly go through the calendar. We've targeted March 31st. We may or may not hit that, but what we're going to do is announce when we have the survey available. And it runs for about 6 weeks. People in town will have 6 weeks to take and return the survey. And that brings us to the end of May. And our plan, as of right now, is to have a second event in June. And so right now we're looking at June 10th. So we understand that there's town meeting that will be, I think, the first week in June. And what we're hoping to do is be able to connect with people before they go away or start summer activities. So the second event is also important, and this is the kickoff where we try to get some people up to speed. The second event is where we'll have the results of the survey, and we want to present the results of the survey out back to the people so that we can all look at where the responses are, where are the biggest concerns, where are the biggest strengths, and where do people agree or disagree. So, this is a process that will be better if you are all participating. So we are here to learn from you, but we can only do so much as long as you guys are participating with us. So I can't say that enough. Then we're going to work diligently in July to firm things up, and as Chris said, we'll have then an outline of some goals or objectives and some idea of where things can be emphasized, where things are going really well. West Brookfield is beautiful. Your town center is wonderful, and so I think there will be a lot of things that people like and want to enhance and preserve. And so we want to know what those are. And then there's also going to be the things that are challenges. And I think the easy ones are out there. So we will get to things like taxes and all that stuff, and that's part of this. So we will get there and we'll understand what some of the challenges are. So the final event we envision happening in late August. All of these events will have feedback opportunities and just more opportunities for us to refine where we're going and where you guys are going. September we'll be working, and then in October we have a final draft product to present. So that's the general schedule as of now where we are. As part of the research, we're very aware that while the town does not have a master plan, the town has been doing work and has been active. So starting in 2013, there was a rural prioritization project where a lot of information was gathered about not just West Brookfield, but all the surrounding towns. In 2011, the town finished an open space and recreation plan. In 2008, this is kind of blurry, I apologize, there's a Department of Conservation and Recreation did a historical inventory. And then finally, I think the Master Plan Committee members mentioned that there was a process somewhat like this back in 2004. And so, what we have going, I think the next slide is about the website. So we have this information, and what we've done is posted it for you. So we want to make sure that if you want to know more and dig deeper on any of these, the information will be available. So, excuse me, this slide is really busy, but it intends to show that on the upper left we have a website. It's a little bit of a long name, but it's westbrookfieldmasterplan.com. And so it's important that you all know that this is here, this is a resource. Something like the event tonight, which is being recorded, is going to be put onto the website and will be viewable for the people who aren't here, can watch this. The townwide postcard mailing was our first attempt to get to everybody, and we think that that was successful from what we've heard. Then there's the Facebook, which Janet mentioned, and of course, I tried it in this building and we don't get really good reception. So the name for that, and I'm not that familiar with Facebook, but it's WBMP, so West Brookfield Master Plan, WBMP 2017, and that's how you get to the Facebook page. We've been trying to do various forms of outreach, and I don't know how many of these have gotten to people, but we have a link from the Town of West Brookfield website. In May, we're going to have an article in the Lake Wickabog Preservation Association newsletter. We had an article in the Spencer New Leader, and then the Quabog Current had a front page article on it. So we're trying the best we can to do outreach. And so again, it goes back to having help from you all with word of mouth to share this information with people that you know who might be interested. These are images from the boards. The idea of the boards is a fact sheet for each of the subject matters. And so I'm sure the last thing that anyone wants me to do right now is tell you about West Brookfield. So that's not really the goal. The goal of the fact sheets is for us to gather information and have some kind of meaningful place to put it as we start this process. So we've got the data that Chris mentioned. So we've reviewed the annual reports, we've gone through the existing documents, and then the state of Massachusetts has a lot of data available. So we've started to collect that. But what we're trying to do tonight is when we break out into a group that's going to talk about land use, is realizing that some of you may not know what that means, and that's going to be okay. So we're going to have a master plan committee member at the table along with a staff person from our office. And what we're going to try to do is get from you your initial take on what are some strengths about the way land is used in West Brookfield. So, you know, the highlight here is that there's some zoning districts. We have information about building permits, and then how land is used throughout town. So the main goal is for you to give us your take on what's working. What are some strengths? Do you like the town center? Do you like, do you like having access to Dunkin' Donuts? Those sort of things are just very hands-on and practical that we're trying to get the strengths, the things that people like. And then the challenges are, you know, for example, if you have ever needed a building permit in town and work on your house. I mean, have you encountered that? Were there any challenges with that? Are there challenges with anything related to land use? So we'll have those little focus groups facilitated. So I'm just going to go through these slides quick to get to the focus group session quicker. Economic development. One thing I think is important here is that economic development means something different to everybody. And so we want to be really sensitive to that. It's what is sort of called out for in the state regulations. But what we want to know is, what businesses do you frequently go to in West Brookfield? What businesses do you need to leave town to get a good or a service from? And so, again, those kind of fall into the strengths. What do we love? And then the challenges are, what could be better? I mean, what is a problem? We need to have a sense of both so that we can shape the future goals and try to figure out potential solutions. Oh, the images were to prompt me that the town center has some really great goods and services available to you. And our question is, do you use them? How often do you go? Farm and agriculture is clearly really important, and that came out in the 2004 plan. So, you know, do you consider that a strength? Do you love the farm stands? Do you go to them? And then obviously there's the the natural resources, the tourism part. And so one thing that we're really excited about is our survey is going to be open approximately a week after the Asparagus Festival. So Janet, we're gonna have a big tent, and we're gonna have a table there, and we're gonna have copies of the survey. So we're gonna try to be there for people who are going to the Asparagus Festival. So I'm bringing that up because it's a tourism thing. So when people come to town, that can be economic development. And so when we're at the focus groups, we'll talk about that a little bit. Natural and cultural resources. I don't really need to say that much. I'd be preaching to the choir. You have great resources here. And so again, looking at the strengths and weaknesses when you're talking amongst yourselves about these will be useful for us. Open space and recreation. Again, that's another aspect of West Brookfield that you are very lucky to have. A lot of the open space and recreation areas that you do. So what we want to try to figure out is, do you go to the town common? Do you think that that's a strength? Or when you go to the town common for other events, are there challenges? Is there parking a problem? What about when you, so I understand that Lake Wickabog is a resource. Is there a challenge there whereby other people are going there, people who may not live in town? I understand that may be one. So think about those things in terms of challenges and then the strengths. Population and housing is a fun one. The total households is not, we can't even read this. So the Population and Housing Board went, where'd it go? Did it fall down? We have approximately, do I not see it?
It's probably over there, waiting to be put back up.
Okay, hold that up for me. So, the total population is 3,701. And so what this chart does show, and what the graphs show, is there's been a dip in the population in West Brookfield. So the chart on the top shows the incline to 2000. This is based on census data, so we only have certain data available at the moment. But in 2000, there was 3,804. I think that's what that number says, and it's dropped down by approximately 100. So as we embark on this process, we want to try to figure out what's behind that, or what does that dip in the population mean, because there's fiscal impact to that. And so population and housing relates to things like that. The chart on the bottom shows the population of towns that surround West Brookfield. So Ware is obviously an adjacent town, but it's much larger than West Brookfield. So that number is 9,800, whereas West Brookfield is 3,700. So this is information that we have. Look at New Braintree, 999. Sorry, I think Janet lives in New Braintree.
Yes.
And then the other thing I
reveal that, Jeff, in case I got run out of town.
Oh, sorry. The other thing I just want to mention that you can't see on the slide, it's on the board, is the total households is 1,479. So this is really basic stuff. But as we go through the master plan, it becomes what we establish as existing conditions. And then from there, we're trying to measure and calculate the future out from there. So we have to start with the boring stuff, which is some of the data. So I've belabored this subject, but we'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this in the focus group. Town facilities and services. So you do have to break out the difference between what's a facility and what's a service. But obviously you have a really great library, you have the senior center, and then what we're calling things on the town common, the bandstand as a facility. And then the services are the Council on Aging, the fire department, the police department, and the schools. So we get a lot of we have a lot of discussion pieces in facilities and services. And again, today is really to just get the conversation started. General strengths from your perspective and some challenges. I think this is the last portion of this. So transportation. I think the keynote here, and I apologize for the slides. On the left, the upper left, the number says that every year West Brookfield receives $236,000 of funding for road repairs from the state. And so that's called Chapter 90 funds. And so it's something that every town gets allocated a certain number of dollars based on the road length that they have. And so I'll hazard a guess to say that number is relatively low compared to probably what your Department of Public Works, what they need to actually work on everything. So let's maybe call that a potential challenge. but what we want to know as well as the challenges are strengths. So are you happy with the crosswalks in town? Are you aware of the project that's going to be happening around the town center? So we'll talk about that. So I'm going to check my timer just for a second here. So I have a couple more minutes. This hopefully looks familiar, this little setting here, people around a table. Why participate? So the thing I'm going to talk about is taking the survey, and then I have this unofficial case study, just an example, some really anecdotal things to show you guys. So again, this slide, my slideshow was much better on the small version. We're going to post the slideshow online. The upper left-hand corner is intended to represent us today as a group, the launch. So this is really the kickoff. What we're going to do with the focus groups is we're going to gather information. You guys are going to stick dots up and help us understand what is your perspective right now. And then the next thing we're going to do is the survey. So the survey, we can't emphasize this enough. This is the best way for people to give their opinion on each of the subject matters. And so this is our best way and only way to really directly connect with people. So if there's a way that you can think of two people that you know live in town and you could kind of nudge to say, hey, take that survey. I think you have some input. You can help the town in this process. The bar chart on the top, the colored, is intended to show the results of the survey. So it looks like questions. You're going to rank things 1 through 5. But what we can do is get a clearer understanding of what's important and what's happening in town. And we need that. So then the picture on the upper right, after the survey results are in, we intend to come back and gather as many people as we can to talk about what we're seeing. So that's the June event. And then at the bottom, was intended to show that this is an objective. So the question at the top was, which of the following recreation amenities would you like to see the town of Hudson provide more of? And so there's a whole list. So the idea is that we'll ask you a series of questions, and we can tell by the orange bar on the top priorities. And at the bottom is a goal and an objective. So the goal is to develop new, well-designed recreation facilities. And then underneath that is a strategy. So that's really how this whole picture plays out, is we can identify goals, and then I think as Janet said, we create some strategies to help the town figure out what they can do and when. And so the master plan committee members talked about setting up stages or strategic timeline. So there's going to be stuff that can be accomplished relatively quickly, midterm, and then long-term goals. So my unofficial case study is East Hampton. This is where I live. This is where I grew up as a kid. And I'm not saying that West Brookfield is like East Hampton, but what I wanted to try to do is show you that it is possible to make this work. It is possible to come up with goals that are achievable, and why this process is worth pursuing. So this was completed in 2008, and I happened to not live in East Hampton at that time, but I grew up in East Hampton, and so as a kid I have certain memories. To be perfectly honest, I had no idea that this was happening in 2008. But what I've seen, I have a family. I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old daughter. We bought a house in East Hampton in 2010. So the master plan started in 2008. We bought our house in 2010, and now, currently in 2017, I am able to see things that were identified in the master plan taking shape. And so for me, the only way I can figure out what to do is I can get excited about this, and I'm trying to hopefully get you guys excited that this can happen. This can be a real document that doesn't live on a shelf. So my slides, I can tell, I know the next ones are going to get a little blurry, but they had a master plan kickoff meeting in 2007, in the middle of January. And so then on the right, the paragraph talks about they did a survey. This is very typical of a master plan process. These are 2 sample survey questions that I thought were a theme I could try to help run through. So the top one is, again, in 2007, East Hampton's becoming well known as a vibrant artist community. Which of the following would you like to see more of? And if you look at the musical events, was ranked really high. And then art in public spaces, theater, and film. Again, I'm not trying to compare West Brookfield to East Hampton. I'm just trying to help show that this could really happen once you elaborate and find what your goals are. The second one is, should the city provide more support incentive for the arts? And it was a pretty good majority. 65% of people said yes. So where am I going with this? They brought people back. They talked through those goals and objectives. Lots of people agreed. They actually produced the document, the master plan. So the cultural resources chapter talks about Old Town Hall, which is a place that, they talked about renovating. They talked about support for art initiatives, and so that's the document. And then the goal is on the top. So one of the strategies was to establish a collaborative effort among artists and business communities, schools, local governments, and increase economic opportunities for artists. So it's pretty broad, and that's the idea, is that you can come up with things that are pretty broad in terms of goals and strategies. But what they actually did is people really supported this. People got involved, and they established East Hampton City Arts. And they established this whole program of murals and public art and all these things. And so it took a long time, and it took a lot of people's effort. But the process yielded the City Arts. And if you've ever been to East Hampton, it's becoming known for arts, and that's a good thing. Another one, and I'm almost done, by the way, but another one is a strategy. So this is a little bit different, but turn our waterfronts into lively public and cultural destinations linked together to create vibrant space. So, there's a couple action steps, and we hope to elaborate on yours more. But what started to happen is there's a pond in the center of town, and so it was a long-held vision to create a promenade on the pond. And so after a couple of years, a lot of work, they started to piece together some grant funding and opportunity to actually make the project happen. And so what I know they did in East Hampton is they went back to the master plan over and over again and said, let's try to make this happen. How can we make this happen? And so obviously there's people at committees and people are involved to make this happen, and that's important. But they got a project that cost almost $1 million, and they got a park grant. So park grants are something that is funded by the state, and what they look for, one of the things that they look for in a park grant is that there's community support for the project. And so what East Hampton was able to do is show, we had this in the master plan, we had this long-standing idea to bring people to this is right in the center of town, and then they patched together other funds. And so the one that's blocked out there is CPA, so Community Preservation Act. It's my understanding you don't have that in town, but in the future, that could be a potential source of funding. But then they had $300,000 from a MassWorks grant. So what they were able to do is continuously go back to the support around this one idea, and they made it happen. And again, I think I have two more of these. So this one was host an annual community-wide cultural festival. And so I know that I'm looking forward to coming to Asparagus Days, and it's something that you already have in place. And so this exact strategy is not what you need, but maybe everyone loves this day so much that you turn it into a 2-day event, or that you try to capture people while they're here to do something else. Or maybe you come up with, there was another event at Lake Wickabog that people were, the triathlon. So maybe there's something there. But here we are in East Hampton with they call it cultural chaos. This has been going on for 3 years. I meant to put up a picture of my family at the end, so they actually successfully did it. And so again, this is my theme, to try to get people excited. The last one is to restore a historic town hall auditorium as a cultural venue. So we've been in West Brookfield Town Hall, it's beautiful. I don't know if that's the right building or the right idea to think about, but what they did is they put it out as a goal, and they worked so hard to actually, this article came out last week in the Gazette, so they finally, so this is years, and so this is where you pick your goals, and you get that in a certain timeline to understand how long it might take. But they are getting funding to restore the upstairs of the Old Town Hall, which is where they used to have town meetings. So for me, this was exciting. This was a way to just try to translate what we're doing to you guys. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to change the whole approach to the meeting. And what we're going to do is have people move about the room. If you notice on your name tag, you have a number. And so the number on the name tag corresponds to, some of the numbers are flopping a little bit, but
Jeff, we still need to move some of the
yeah, yeah.
if
So,
you're okay with some movement and some noise.
well, actually, yeah, what I'll do is, let me talk for one more minute and then we'll move about the room. So the idea is you have a number on your name tag, and once I get through with my little explanation, we'll take 5 minutes to get some tables situated. You're going to go to your focus area. And again, it's designated by the number on your name tag. So can you hold up that number, Emily? So that's number 6. Number 6 is going to go in the front. And so here's a quick review of what we're going to do. We're going to talk about strengths and challenges. And so I think the best approach that we've recommended for the master plan committee members and our staff is to start with strengths. I think the natural tendency may be the other, but we're going to try to talk about the things that you like. What's good? And maybe we spend 10 minutes on that. We'll have people taking the notes, and we'll switch to the challenges. And so after about 20 minutes of this, where you can freely talk within your group, the master plan committee member is going to stand up and try to explain to the whole audience what we did in number 1, natural cultural resources. And at that point, if you weren't in that group, you'll have a chance to add to the list. So I'm going to try to facilitate that. So we'll take a couple minutes to go around the room. Does anyone have anything to add as a strength for cultural and natural resources? So this is good. This is supposed to be fun. This will be fun. Then we'll be, so let's imagine 35 minutes to do that. Then we're going to stick all the sticky notes up on the front, and then you'll have dots, and you'll be able to give your priority to each of the strengths and weaknesses. So Chris is going to add something, and then we'll break out into these groups.
The first thing I wanted to give you folks an opportunity to do before we broke out into the groups is to see if you had any initial questions about the presentation, the process, what we're going to essentially be doing going forward, any clarifying questions, anything like that.
Sir, Chris.
Where? Oh, yes.
Actually, can I use a microphone?
Probably reject I'm Rick McDonald. I'm a resident of Snow Road, and I'm just wondering, as much as East Hampton is a tremendous success story, I know you don't necessarily compare the two. Are there aspirational communities or places that face similar challenges and opportunities to West Brookfield, perhaps with master plans available for us to review? If that could be part of that website or part of the media presence. I don't have a tremendous amount of experience with the enormity of a master plan, but it seems someone somewhere has probably done a very successful implementation. I'd just be very curious if you have thoughts or could provide examples of those.
Yes, we actually have, we haven't put it up on the website yet, but it's something that we certainly can and probably should do, is we've collected a number of different master plans from around the state of Massachusetts and elsewhere that we think serve as models. We think have one or more things about them, either implementation or the way they're laid out or whatever, that we think could serve us as a sort of a guidebook in terms of how we could put a great plan together for you guys. That's one thing. But I think also, looking at comparable communities, certainly you all have been to many, many communities. You love this community. You've been to other communities that are great and have things that maybe you aspire to. Let us know through this process or through the survey or through email or Facebook what those communities are, what you like about them, and we'll continue to do research. We've already done a good bit of research into that type of thing, and we will continue to do that. So yes, that's a great question. Thank you. I think there was one over
Chris,
here as well, right?
Right in front of you, Chris.
Oh.
Hi, I live in town now. I just wanted to say a word of encouragement and reassurance for a lot of people, because I lived in Munson, Town Munson, for 28 years, and I live here. And I did sit through the citizen input parts of the master planning a number of years ago, and I think the majority of people in the town of Munson loved how it turned out. There were big concerns about having our town stay rural and the roadsides, the wooded roadsides, the things that people love. And that's what came out of the citizen input part of it. And they changed, some aspects in order to make that priority to keep what people wanted. So that's just my thoughts.
Great, thank you. Any other questions before we get started?
Can I say something? One item that I didn't mention, I'd really like to thank the school for arranging for the babysitting tonight. I had the pleasure of going in and thanking the students and also encouraging the few kids in there that they needed to have more fun. So I'm sorry if you can't calm them down when you get home. Maybe they'll be extra tired, but they were having a good time in there anyway. So thanks to the school. Thanks for bringing your children, entrusting them with the Honor Society students so that you could participate in this. One last item I'd like to say, I really do like West Brookfield. I'm very connected to West Brookfield. I've never lived in West Brookfield. I did work in West Brookfield about 17 years ago on a temporary basis. It was a great community to be in. I would be so proud to be able to say to my other 39 communities that West Brookfield had the highest response on the surveys. You could make the top of that list. So say, for instance, it's a 25% response out of all of the households or the voting-aged residents. It would give me great pleasure to go out to the 495 area that we serve or down into the Blackstone Valley and promote your community and let them know how important this was to you and how you felt. So please make sure that you participate, get those surveys in, get the word out, and I'll let you know how it happens. We have an internal competition going on within CMRPC as far as how many surveys will be responded to, and I've also opened it up to all the town hall staff and the boards that we've met with and whatnot. Plan to have a lunch at Salem Cross End, compliments of me. It won't be coming out of the master plan fund, the town of West Brookfield fund, or CMRPC's fund. But we want to have a good time, but we need your input. I just can't stress that enough. Please be respectful when you're in your respective groups. Don't be afraid to voice your opinion. We need to hear it. Regarding the challenges and also the strengths. So let's have fun. Thanks.
Great, so we'll take 5 minutes to just go around the room and find the station that you're at, and we'll move some tables over. So 5 minutes, we'll start the focus groups.